Greetings to you all, wherever you are, at home or abroad. You're now tuned into Talk Sense Media, your voice of reason in the noise. Here we bring you the news that matters to you. Straight talk, clear facts, and honest reasoning, because you deserve to understand what's really going on. Whether it's headlines or what's happening on the streets, if it affects you or your community, we break it down and we talk sense. So let's get into today's story. Andrew Holness and the Jamaica Labour Party has scored a huge victory in the election. But it's not for the reasons that you might be thinking. As a matter of fact, many persons might call the victory narrow, but hear me out here. Because I'm here to explain why in reality this was or is a big win. Yes, I know that the JLP only won 35 seats, while the People's National Party walked away with 28. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, you have to keep watching and listening so that it makes sense and you'll get that moment. The reality is that the numbers alone is not loud and doesn't seem like a landslide, and in fact it wasn't. But when it comes to this election, it wasn't just about seat count and the margin of win. It was about a failed plot. Yes, I said it, a failed plot that the PNP and its operatives devised to dethrone Andrew Holness. Andrew had to strategize and fought battles with forces behind the scenes during this election. The fight was far bigger than just the PNP alone. Andrew Holness and the PNP went up against powerful forces and interest groups, and even fake leaders posing as prophets and prophetesses. They got themselves in the mix. But Dayton Campbell, representing the PNP, launched an aggressive campaign. But that was only the beginning. The real challenge that came from media houses, institutions like the Integrity Commission, and public narratives that could have easily derailed the JLP entirely. Now imagine being surrounded and facing multiple waves of attack from all angles. Pun intended. The press scrutinizing every move, stories designed to weaken your credibility, and even supposedly independent institutions creating public doubt or maintaining silence. This wasn't just a political fight, it was a war on Andrew's credibility and demanded that he use his skills at the highest level to survive the constant assault. It was about survival in the very harshest political environment. And yet, Andrew Holness came through skillfully, like Messi, strategically, like a champion navigating a minefield. He emerged with a decisive victory. And the PNP had to face their greatest fears on the day of the election. Andrew prevailed, the people spoke clearly. It was evident that the PNP was determined to bring him down like how David brought down Goliath. There was a lot at stake for the PNP, overcoming the turmoil in their party, the division, and 2 terms out in the wilderness. So they figured something drastic needed to happen. So let's talk about the PNP strategy. They unleashed their PP plans, and the PP means promises and propaganda. Publicity stunt. Obviously they figured it was a brilliant strategy, and it was rolled out and put into action. It was attack, 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 misinformation, and chance of corruption, but otherwise short of substance. The sentiments coming from the PNP supporters could be heard everywhere, locally and in foreign. Andrew corrupt, and if you go jail. And I guess to them it seemed as if it was working. So they must have thought that voters would simply be swayed by these statements, flashy promises, and a well-orchestrated media push. But they made some miscalculation. They were hoping that the people of Jamaica would be easily manipulated, fooled, and fall for their narrative. The PNP may have rallied their die-hard supporters, but the rest of the country saw through the spectacle. Many voters were actually turned off by empty promises and the constant attack, recognizing that leadership was more than just slogans. It required delivery, competence, and a track record. Andrew Holness's JLP, on the other hand, demonstrated stability. They reminded the public of the programs already underway, roadworks, economic initiatives, social programs, and efforts to navigate crisis with steady hands. Now that consistency under immense pressure became a powerful counter to the PNP's hype and propaganda. So the JLP focused on progress and development, while the PNP chanted, "Call it, Andrew, call it. Time come." It's like But it was like watching a boxing match. The challenger is loud and flexing his muscles, sending threats and insults, while the champion remains focused, thinking about executing his game plan, knowing that he had put in the training and have the best people in his corner. So think about it this way. Imagine this. The bell rings, the opponent charges with full confidence, thinking that he can knock out the champion. But the champion absorbs his assaults, the low blows below the belt, and yet stick to his fight plan. The champion Holness team may not have looked flashy, but they knew the plays, executed them perfectly, and scored when it mattered the most. So when the bell rang, the PNP was left dejected, battered, with bruised egos, wondering where they went wrong. The JLP had done more than just survive. They had won against not just the opposition, but the operatives that were determined to see him fall like Humpty Dumpty when he fall off the wall. But here's the thing. They were warned by Edward Siago and PJ Patterson. Andrew Holness is no lightweight, and they felt his effects. They witnessed his political genius. If you have reached this far and you still haven't gotten it, haven't understood what I'm saying, and you find yourself asking, how is that a big win? Well, let me enlighten you. It's about impact, not just about margin. JLP did not just win the battle. They were battling expectations, perceptions, influence, and the powerful media houses. So every seat won was the public's way of saying, we trust you to lead, even though external forces tried to taint his image. And so the message Jamaicans sent is clear. Continuity matters. Leadership matters. So Holness proved that being smart, patient, and consistent can overcome hype and propaganda. That's a lesson, not just for politics, but for life itself. But there's still challenges moving forward. Winning the election is one thing. Governing effectively is another. So now that the JLP has this mandate, they must translate promises into real results. Citizens expect further improvement in crime reduction, economic growth, education, healthcare, and infrastructure. And the clock is ticking. People are watching and patience is limited. So I personally believe that a national advertisement thanking the people of Jamaica is in order. It shouldn't be taken for granted, and the JLP need to change its perceived image, beginning with visible expression of gratitude. Make the people them feel special, man. Make them feel as though you really recognize the mandate that they give. This election was the people saying, we trust you as a leader to manage our affairs. It's built on a belief, a signal that the JLP has demonstrated some level of responsibility and understands the mandate, which is their commitment to continue what they started and will now look beyond the election victory and focus on the task at hand. Meanwhile, the PNP will have to reflect, regroup, and strategize for the future. They underestimated the electoral's ability to judge substance over hype. And while media narratives, propaganda, and promises may sway some, ultimately, Jamaicans voted with reason, not just rhetoric. This election also highlighted a key truth about politics in Jamaica, which is credibility, competence, and strategic thinking often outweighs emotion-driven campaigns. Holness didn't just win against the opposition. He won against doubt, against fear, and against institutional pressures that many thought would sway the results of the election. So yes, the JLP scored big in my estimation, even though they did not overwhelmingly crush the PNP and numbers alone, but more so because they overcome multiple layers of challenge and emerge stronger. And for the people of Jamaica, this is a moment to reflect not just on the party they voted for, but the power of making informed, thoughtful choices. Andrew Holness now has the mandate, but mandates are fragile. They must be transformed into results, programs that touch lives, and leadership that inspires confidence. The elections are over, but guess what? The real test has just begun. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, this is Talk Sense Media, your voice of reason in the noise.